Tonight at 10, the cry of war and catastrophe in Gaza as hundreds of thousands of residents flee their homes. Israeli ground troops now preparing to move in. Shelby Lofton talks to one Utah tourist trapped in Israel.
In the middle of the night, we literally felt, some rumbling. I thought it maybe was an earthquake.
Senator Mitt Romney on who's to blame as the death toll rises.
Israeli lives and Palestinian lives are all the result of Hamas.
A huge development in Utah's bid for the Winter Olympic Games. What happened today that put Salt Lake City on the map?
Nobody has been named by the IOC for 2034 other than Salt Lake City.
Remembering a mother, a grandmother, and the wife of an apostle for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, saying goodbye to Kathleen Johnson Irene.
She had the very best mix of a very calm and quiet heart.
Hey, how are you?
And a big community parade and outreach for a little 4-year-old girl, the rare disease and the fight to overcome it.
She's been such a blessing to our family. You make me get emotional.
KSL News at 10 starts now.
Thanks for joining us on this busy Sunday night. Tonight, the war in Israel escalating as the country says it is gearing up for the next stages of its war with Hamas.
Conditions in Gaza have deteriorated into a, quote, complete catastrophe, aid workers say, as tens of thousands of Palestinians attempt to flee. There are concerns tonight for civilians, including American citizens trapped inside Gaza, as the Israeli Defense Force prepares for significant ground invasions. They're warning residents to leave, but the question tonight is how and where do they go?
We have complete coverage tonight on the escalations, but first, a Utah tourist trapped in Israel when the war broke out is trying to get home.
News specialist Shelby Lofton is at the Utah State Capitol tonight, which is lit up with its solidarity with Israel. Shelby.
Dan and Debbie, we are outside the state capitol looking at it lit up in blue and white, and on the stairs you're seeing an image of the Israeli flag projected onto them, showing support and solidarity for Israel. And tonight there are Utahns who are still stuck in the Middle East. I talked to a couple who traveled to Israel, and just days into their trip, the war broke out. They tell me about their journey to get back onto American soil.
In the middle of the night, we literally felt, some rumbling.
A few days into their trip of a lifetime, Jan and Mark Sieverts found themselves inside a country in turmoil.
It was nearby missile strikes that we experienced.
The Sieverts, who are from Washington, Utah, traveled with the tour group Israel Revealed.
We had just arrived in Tel Aviv.
They noticed military staging and saw missile strikes outside of their hotel.
We certainly knew the war was on.
They tried to go home, but found themselves stuck.
Our original flight had already been canceled, and we tried to look at alternative options, and those were also canceled.
They said despite the chaos, they stayed calm.
It wasn't fearful, wasn't dramatic, and immediately the Israeli military, their professional response.
Their tour guide, Stephen Rona, led them to secure places.
When we went to the Garden Tomb, it was remarkably empty.
Away from the conflict.
We didn't get to go to Bethlehem, for example, because that's so close to the Gaza Strip.
The only way to get back to the U.S. was to cross the border into Jordan.
We did go through in 2 hours and 16 minutes. We'd heard that the groups that had gone through the day before was more than 5 hours.
The Sieverts and 2 other Utah couples now wait for their flight out of Amman Tuesday morning.
We're not the traveling types, so we've been outside of our comfort zone. We will definitely be glad to get back.
And the Sieverts told me that they plan to fly out of Jordan, then go to Germany, have a layover there, then fly to Los Angeles and hopefully back to Vegas, where they will drive back up to the St. George area. So a long journey ahead of them in the coming days. But also today, the U.S. government said it will continue to fly U.S. citizens out of Israel tomorrow and Tuesday. But they said anyone needing that flight should be prepared to wait. Dan and Debbie, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, hopefully they can get back safely. Thanks a lot. Shelby Lofton live for us tonight. And as Shelby mentioned, a somber memorial at the state capitol tonight. Local Israelis and community members lighting candles in memory of the more than 100 Israeli citizens killed at what is being called Israel's Ground Zero.
We just really wanted to have a little space together as a community to honor the people who were murdered in our country this week. And 100 of them were buried today in Kibbutz Be'eri, which is one of the places that got the most horrific slaughter.
Passed out flyers stating the names of people who were kidnapped and kept hostage. They say they want to humanize this war and want the public to know the names of those who were captured. Also at tonight's memorial, though, Palestinians who say they felt compelled to attend the vigil after seeing the Capitol lit up in blue and white. They stood silently until the end, where they held signs in the Palestinian flag while chanting, "Free Palestine."
We came here to represent a voice that doesn't exist in this narrative, to represent lives that are people that are dying and they have no one to talk to. They have gatherings that are not on that scale. Their life is not as appreciated.
Omar says they want to stop the genocide on Gaza and give a voice to those civilians who have been left without nothing.
Now back overseas. Rocket
Tonight.
Well, it is looking good for an Olympic return to Utah. A big vote today by the International Olympic Committee all but seals the deal for a return to Salt Lake City. We spoke to the man who's working to make sure it happens. Fraser Bullock, CEO and president of the Salt Lake City, Utah Committee for the Olympic Games, says the key to Utah's bid is the support. He says there is 100% support from political leaders and 82% from the public. Bullock says Utah is open to hosting the games in either year, but hopes for 2034 to put some distance between the Summer Games in Los Angeles in 2028.
Other cities are working on 2030, France, Switzerland, and Sweden, but nobody has been named by the IOC for 2034 other than Salt Lake City.
Bullock says the next step is something called targeted dialogue. That's when the city begins the process of negotiating a contract with the IOC. He says once the city reaches that stage, you're on the right track to securing an award. Targeted dialogue for 2034 is set to start in November, so next month. We could know if all this happens by the end of the year.
Wow.
And
How exciting is that?
he was saying 82% by the public. I mean, when you get that kind of support for anything nowadays,
Yeah.
you know, that's incredible.
Exactly. That'd be really exciting. Hey, if the weather could keep up, hey, we wouldn't mind that.